Hello, this is your weather woman meteorologist Amy Metz, and today I'm going to start off a little different and just play out this model so you can see um, what I'll be talking about. So it's really clear because there's actually two cyclones that could form here in the South Pacific. One is rotating here, already starting to show some signs that it will begin rotating soon. The other is right now another batch of storm clusters that are over Papua New Guinea. And so that one will very likely be crossing over Australia, this northeastern tip, quite a bit stronger than the system that is now forming over Fiji. And there's a couple of reasons for that that I'll go over. First of all, we have a much wider system here, and a lot of that feeding air, the stuff that's feeding into this storm, for a while will get slowed down by the islands, some of the topography and the land that is Fiji, whereas near Papua New Guinea, this cyclone, as it's forming, will have less interaction with land and be able to get a tight, organized center. So here we're seeing more than 100 miles per hour there, 160 kilometer per hour gusts. Could be even up to 200, I would say, just based off the few things I've been looking at so far that I'll go over. Whereas this storm near Fiji will not be as strong, but a lot more rain with it. So since Fiji's already been getting a lot of rain, we'll have to be worried a little bit there then about mudslides. And now, in this part of the world, the stronger sides of these storm systems are going to be the southwest most oftentimes. So it will have a chance to also bring some tropical storm force winds into New Zealand in the next week. And now, if you're looking at the days here, I want to keep in mind for everybody, I am in Thursday, where this part of the world is already in Friday. So we're about 12 hours apart here on anything you're going to see. They're a half a day ahead of me and the timeline that you'll see. So I'm going to go up in the atmosphere a little bit. What I usually start with when forecasting these things is the steering winds. But since we have not yet looked at the satellite, I want to show you just how much rain is out there and why I've been watching this. Yellow here is dry air. We're looking kind of high up in the sky here. This is Hawaii. And so then just to the southwest is the South Pacific. Here's Fiji that I'm circling with the cursor. And all the green is a lot of moisture. That white is going to be a lot of high level clouds. Some of those pretty clouds that you'll see that are just kind of straight lines over, or further away from Fiji. Whereas over Fiji, all the way to Vanuatu, all the way to Solomon Islands and Papua New Guinea included, has been green for a while. Now, Fiji did get a little bit of a break here and there, so did Vanuatu, but Papua New Guinea's been pretty rainy. So anywhere that's continuing to get rain, now it's time to start worrying a little bit more about roads getting washed over or crops getting covered and flooded. Now, the high winds, it's going to feel a lot like tropical storm force winds in Fiji this whole week. Luckily, that system, there's reasons why the strongest winds will not blow over Fiji, and there is reason why it won't get very strong. We can already tell the difference in the moisture here. So red, where these dark reds are appearing and bubbling up, is an area that normally would have high torrential downpours. What we're measuring here are cloud temperatures, and usually the higher they are, the more rain there is, the colder it is. So these bright red regions usually represent very strong upward motion, which also represents storms. And when they stay in these kind of circular formations for a while, see how it's kind of growing circularly. I just noticed that it's any kind of little tropical wave, as we call them, or brush by with another system at a different layer that I'll show you in a moment here, that can instigate the actual rotation and cyclone, the cyclonic spinning winds at that point. So there is reason here that this could very well be happening near Fiji first, and then with this batch of storms over Papua New Guinea as it drifts a little bit more out to sea and toward the east. So the steering winds I'll get to. This is, again, up higher in the sky where we saw the green, all that moisture living. I'm going to go to 500 and 600 millibars for the first bit of this. now, since this one's going to be first, I'll zoom in on Fiji first. And we can see where the winds are going by looking at these streamlines. We can tell that it's already gaining a bit of a cyclonic motion here at this 500 millibar level. Pretty much the center of these storms, if you're looking at them from ground level looking up, be somewhere in the middle. And that has a lot to do with where these storms will go. So I look out ahead, I look all around, and I see where is the path of least resistance. This is one layer, but it's really the most important with steering. And I can see that some of this energy is already feeding into this jet. We call these the polar jets down here. I know it's there because I've already looked at other information just to show you proof of that. The jets, these upper level jets, are actually higher where planes fly, around 200 millibars, 300, anywhere between 150 and 300 millibars. So there's a jet max here. A light ridge, a slight ridge is what we would call it, us meteorologists, that is. So now, knowing that it's part of that larger system, there's reason for me to know that there's a lot of energy with that. And yes, part of this could drift this way. But unfortunately, these blues right in between show that it's not as strong of a pull. Instead of pulling a lot, it's just going to pull a little. And that means this storm here has a lot of chance to grow before anything else interacts with it. And I know that because then if I cruise up in the sky again and I look at that jet level, these waves tend to either be more zonal, like this one, sort of straight across, or they can be have a high amplitude with very distinct troughs that look more like U's going into longer waves is what we would call them. But that's not the case right now. Instead, there's all this sort of a reason for me to believe as someone who watches these patterns that this is kind of going to skate on by, barely affecting this system. So that system is surrounded by blues representing really light winds. There's not much to push or pull it in any direction, and that's not going to change. I'll play this out, and I have a good feeling it's going to stay pretty zonal, gain a little bit of amplitude, but not do very much for this system. You'll see how we're getting now what's called a trough very well to the south. That sort of thing will help then later on pull it down once it gets into this stronger left entrance region, as we call this in meteorology. But that's going to take a while for these sort of long waves to make it their way, all the way from Australia toward New Zealand. That's going to take sometimes like 5 to 7 days. So as we watch this play out, indeed, this is a quite slow one. And we're already getting into what would be local time Monday night now. And still, that storm system would barely have moved away from Fiji. It's barely now beginning to join in with that left entrance region, as we call it, just that part of that jet level that has the most pull with it. So by that time, we'll be bracing for another landfall in Australia at the same time that this storm is making its way away from Fiji, bringing some gusts to New Caledonia along the way. I'll go back to gusts with a close-up now on each one of these storms. And remember, this is a model forecast quite a ways out. I do have reason to believe this storm will hover around for quite a while. And like I was saying, 5 to 7 days, right around Tuesday, Wednesday, that's when things are finally going to start letting up. But really, it's going to be the worst before it starts getting better at the same time. So what we're looking at are tropical storm force winds affecting Fiji and also the southern portions of New Caledonia. And that will continue on. We also have a couple of islands in between the southern portions of Vanuatu that will also have some tropical storm force winds. Some of these gusts, since it's been raining so much, could actually lay down trees and help disrupt some rocks and create little mudslides. So as it's raining heavily and you're getting into the part of the storm where it's, Wednesday, Tuesday, and it's really windy, plus it's been raining a lot, I would be a little more careful while commuting and just realize that there is a chance for rubble and trees to be easier to push over and blow over when that ground is soaking wet. So at the same time then, as that is finally exiting the region where it will do the most disruptions, we will be having this second landfall moving across this northeastern portion of Australia. So when you see white, it's more than 100 miles per hour, 160 kilometers per hour. This storm in particular has reasons why it's going to stay strong that are a little more technical. I won't get into, but there is a good reason to believe, because it's such a tight circulation and there's not much to cut that off in this area, that it will continue to re-intensify when it's in these open waters. They're very warm water, and that's basically the driving force behind these. So a better close-up here, and reminder also that if by chance, because this is so far out, and this one with its directions will have a lot more to do with that jet level, if it ends up coming a little bit closer toward this portion on the jet level, then we could have a little bit of a weaker storm, but chances are there will be gusts in this area that are damaging and could even cut out power to some of these cities nearby, especially in the zones where you see the white. And then along with that, there could even be some random stronger gusts embedded within the blues and the purple regions that can also be damaging. But very quickly, once this makes a landfall, we will see those whites slip away and wind speeds drop dramatically very quickly. So now we're looking closer to what would be tropical storm force once it gets to this point. And again, still a lot of rain. So this area has not been as drenched recently, so it's not such a huge threat that I just talked about with Fiji and Vanuatu, with all of the possibility of rubble and trees being knocked over easily, but the winds will be stronger. So it could, in the end, be kind of similar results with more wind damages to Australia. And that would be going on through the weekend. So rain is a huge threat. Winds are a huge threat through the weekend in Australia, in that north portion. And from now through next week, we will be seeing strong wind gusts across Fiji. Fiji will not get a let up, but luckily it won't be a direct landfall. I don't see any reason to believe there will be, although there is this spinning around. And so as the days get closer, I'll keep on showing information about this, and I'll keep updates on my Weather Woman page on Facebook, as well as restreaming some lives here as we get closer. But because of these steering winds at this 500 millibar level that we're looking at right now, there's a good reason to believe, yes, this right here will be, because it's blue, that this is going to stay stationary, not move much. And that once all of this stronger wind, the greens and this that's part of the jet level, once that moves off to the east, it will be able to slip down a little bit more to the south and absorb some of the area that's going to be opened up by when these blues move in, which I'm sure will happen. Let me see what the model says too. I usually tend to do better long-term forecasts than the models, and I'm using this to give you an idea of what I mean. So I'm assuming it will also catch on to this because it's only a few days away. But yes, as this moves away, more blues will drift here south of this current rotation that's beginning. It's not a ground rotation yet, so we can't call it a cyclone yet, but that is developing. So now, yes, more and more blues moved into the scene here. But pretty quickly, once that happens, it will have the chance to gain a stronger rotation. So by Sunday evening in that storm local time, in Fiji time zone, then we will be seeing here, I'm going back down to the surface so you can be clear. This is down at ground level. Now we have that closed circulation at the surface. That would make it, by definition, a cyclone at that point. Luckily, like I was saying, I'll say it again, the stronger winds will be in this southern portion, the southwestern part. So Fiji is sliding right by the skin of their teeth there with staying in the safer zone. But there'll be plenty of rain. I hope that it goes to good use and we're not seeing crops get flooded out. But that is in a low-lying areas, especially on the north portions where most of this rain will be coming in the stronger winds. There will be some threats there to watch out for through the week, especially then into Tuesday and Wednesday when things get a little bit stronger and this thing starts cycling around. There's a good chance that it will circle around a little bit before it finally goes south. So there might be some scary days there where people are watching to see how close it will get. But at this point, I feel very comfortable saying that there will not be a direct landfall in Fiji. And that people who do live in the portion of Australia where we see this storm, that there's a good reason they should start. Look at that eye. It really looks like an eye here of this thing. Yeah, people should definitely just have plans in effect if you're coastal areas here of where else you could be going if this thing really does have 150-kilometer mile per hour winds or more, which I do believe it will. So that's definitely going to be the bigger worry here, in my opinion, when it comes to wind speeds and needing to get more people evacuated. Whereas if I were in Fiji, I would basically just want to stay put and know that I was in a safe place where it's not low lying and there's not floods. It's not right along a slope. Some of these north, if you're on a slope on the north side, that's going to be where the stronger gusts are. So I wish everybody the best through these storms. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. And feel free to find me on Facebook. The link is in the description below. I'm easy to find. Again, I am a meteorologist, Amy Metz, and I go by Weather Woman also. So I hope everybody the best through this. Like I said, I'll keep on restreaming. It might be a little bit touch and go here for a couple days watching this thing slide around the island.